Hey, welcome into this week's episode of Cincinnati Podcasts. We had a little bit of a break after a crazy whirlwind season with the Bearcats, but we're here to bring you the recap of the 2021 Bearcat football season, discuss some basketball stuff that's going on, and then also look into the future, coaching hires, recruiting cycle, all of that going on. We're going to bring it to you this week. I'm your host, T Money. That's my other host out there, Giggsy in the Carolinas. What's going on, Greg?
What's up?
Oh, man. What a crazy, crazy season. For those who don't know, Greg and I went to the playoff game. It was just epic. What a wild time.
It was a lot of fun. That stadium, I remember we walked in the door and our group just stopped, and it was just mind-blowing how amazing Jerry World was.
Yeah.
And amazing weekend.
Yeah, it was so fun. Dallas was great. The Alabama fans were pretty nice. I'll give them credit. Our fans were out screaming, being loud. I mean, it was an event of a lifetime. So much fun. So we got a lot to get to. But before we dive in, this podcast is sponsored by Chili Labs. Chili Labs is owned and operated by a UC alum and is the most affordable lab-tested CBD on the market. You can find out more at chililabs.com and use the promo code CATS for 10% off. So let's dive in here. Sure. Our first note to talk about, we can just give a little recap of the Cincinnati Alabama game. You know, the final score 6-27 Alabama. You know, we kept the Heisman Trophy winner Young to 181 yards and he had a pick. So, you know, our defense played pretty well, but man, we just couldn't stop the run. Your thoughts on the game initially there, Greg?
I think, like you just said, I think we really, really committed to saying we're going to completely stop Bryce Young, as we've seen the Cats do in previous games. Like, we are not going to let this team pass on us. And like Tulsa did to us, Brian Robinson just ran all over our defense.
Yeah.
This is a situation where I would I really miss Marcus Freeman, because I think more so than Mike Tressel, he was able to make those adjustments and changes on the fly where it might not be a halftime adjustment. It's we're getting run all over in the first quarter. We're putting this like new scheme into place. Second quarter on, we're good. That was what kind of frustrated me. I mean, I went in a little too high, thinking that we could actually do this, which of course we could. But at the end of the day, you're going up against Bama. I think you could really see, and you saw this last year in the Peach Bowl, that our team can play with these SEC big dogs all the way, except for our offensive line. In the first half of the Peach Bowl last year, things were going amazing. James Hudson gets ejected. Lorenz Metz comes in and let up a strip sack, completely changed the game. And I think the way that Dez had almost no time to throw the ball was the clear, this is an area where we need to improve. And we'll talk about maybe what we're doing there to improve later in the pod. But I think that was the main thing. It's just we didn't have time to pass, and it really didn't run that well either. It was just a slow offensive game.
Yeah. I don't know if you read my notes before this, but my God, the exact same things written down. The inability to adjust to the fact that they were running all over us. Our two best players on our team are our corners, and we wouldn't let them go one-on-one. I don't understand bringing down a safety, bringing down those safeties, bringing in the linebackers. We were so concerned about, stopping the over the middle pass and everything. We needed to stop the run. We needed to stop the bleeding. Let our best players be our best players. We didn't allow them to do that. And because of that, they ran all over us. So totally agree. We were unable to adjust there. That was on the defense, but we held Jamison Williams to only 62 yards. He was one of the best receivers in the country this year and was already doing better than that versus Georgia before he went down in the national championship game. And then, like you said, our offensive line just couldn't compete. And I think that's where you see sort of the differences between these SEC teams or an elite level team, at least. because those trenches, those guys are so big and so elite on both defensive lines and offensive lines for those elite championship level teams that eventually they're just going to wear you out. So, like you said, Ritter was under duress all night. We had multiple chances in the red zone that we couldn't convert on. So that was a little frustrating, a drop pass, and Ritter just missed a few guys on that first drive. Just little things like that we couldn't capitalize on when we had the moments. The pick that we got, we couldn't capitalize in there. So just little things, but hey, we put a valiant effort in. It was 6-17 through 3 quarters. That is pretty damn impressive for the number 4 team in the country, Power 5 team Cincinnati, to hold the defending champ and second best team in the country too. So I don't look at it as a loss. I think we proved that we belong. Really, we were one of 2 teams, now 3, including this past championship game. 3 times Alabama's been held under 30 points in the past 3 seasons. And one of those was us. So our defense was legit. We proved that. Bummer that we lost, but what an experience. What a game.
What I actually think, might have been the person who I think changed the game the most was, I think he goes by Phil, but Fedarian Mathis, giant D tackle for Bama. He deflected 2 of Dez's passes, and off the top of my head, I cannot remember which ones they were, because for the second time in the past 2 seasons, this is one game I haven't gone back and watched for obvious reasons. And also, as the game continued to go on, I think I was forgetting more and more as the Miller Lights kept flowing.
Yeah.
But he deflected 2 of Dez's passes right at the line, and both of those balls were going to receivers who were actually open, which was another thing that kind of blew my mind. Is Bama's corners were then aren't that great. No. Josh Jobe was out, and so I was surprised that our wide receivers were blanketed a little bit, but maybe they're blanketed because Dez is trying to get the ball out in a second. They barely have a chance to run their routes, but I think he changed the game. I'm not saying we would have won by any stretch, but I think we might have put a touchdown on the board, maybe another touchdown, a field goal.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to see him not have been such an impact, and the score would have been a little bit better. But let's get back there next year.
Yep, let's do it again. So, it's just amazing. Cincinnati made the playoff. It was an amazing, amazing year for them. So can't fault them. That score is a lot closer than it looks if, just by watching that game, that. And, like you said, defense didn't adjust and our offensive line, couldn't hold up, but awesome game, awesome season. We can touch now on the championship game real quick if you want. Georgia takes down Alabama, and they win, letting Bryce Young throw for 369. Pretty crazy. Our defense held him to 181. They didn't have Jamison Williams for the last 3 quarters of that game. So any thoughts on that championship game as you look back?
Well, just curious. We didn't talk about this. Who were you rooting for?
So it's tough because I wanted Alabama to lose because I hate them now for crushing my dreams. But at the same time, I wanted them to win because they beat us. And so it would look better if we lost to the eventual national champion. So I didn't mind Georgia winning. I thought that was good for college football to have a different champion, especially when Alabama's kind of on a quote unquote down year. You'd hope that someone else could slip in for once instead of these guys constantly dominating, even when they're bad, so to say. So I was rooting Georgia more than Alabama, I guess.
Yeah, I was kind of right there in the same boat. I'm sick of Bama and I'm mad at Bama, but at the same time I was like, hey, Alabama wins, we might come in second in the polls, probably third. But overall that game, I was surprised to see how uncomfortable Bryce Young looked, especially because 2 games prior, Bama destroyed Georgia, and I really did not think the Bulldogs had a chance at all.
Yeah.
I was like, even after the Michigan game, I was like, okay, Georgia's a really good team. Bama's going to go back out there and beat them by roughly the same margin they beat them before. I think, again, interestingly, Stetson Bennett had a very good game.
Yeah.
And we harped on this almost the entire year that like Georgia's defense was incredible, but like their offense wasn't that great. Stetson Bennett would come out with like pedestrian performances, like passing usually pretty accurately, but like passing somewhere in the 100-yard range, like 150, and like he never had to do much, but like I guess
He looked good. He proved it in the end of the third and the fourth there. He proved it. I think the difference, honestly, was Mechie and Williams not being there for Alabama. I mean, if you could see Bryce Young's passes, and even the ones that were incomplete, he was putting it right on the money on his young receivers, and they just couldn't catch the ball. They couldn't contest and go up and get the ball. I think Bryce Young actually played a decent game, even though he had 2 picks. If you really watch it, he was accurate, but they couldn't get separation. There's a big difference between a 5-star rookie and a 5-star who's been around, won a national title. Mechie and Williams are both first-round talents, and to lose both of them kind of took the gas out of their offense, and they had them both when they played Georgia the first time. So that was really my big takeaway, is they just couldn't move the ball because their 2 best players weren't on the field anymore.
And that means basically his number one target, I mean, he didn't end up with the most yards or targets, but Slade Bolden becomes essentially his most veteran receiver and number one target. Like he was I think a 4-star, but like Slade Bolden, like so it just like didn't open the field up for him at all. But yeah, I mean, exciting game for most of the game, and then Georgia just stomped on him right in the fourth. So
So congrats to Georgia on the national title. We were one of the 4 finalists this year, so Cincinnati got to be excited about that.